Welcome back, everybody, to Fantasy Takes Movie Edition. Today I have Mark, Frank, and returning Adam. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Pretty good.
Awesome. Hey, have you guys been seeing Ahsoka?
Yes.
I'm still stuck at like this. I watched the second episode and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to wait till it's finished and then watch them all the way through.
Are you out of your fucking mind?
What?
Holy shit.
Don't tell me how to watch my shows.
I'm waiting till the very last episode, just before the last episode to watch, so I can watch them all straight through and then watch the very last episode.
There you go.
When it comes out.
All right. That'll work.
All right, so have you guys watched Clone Wars?
Yes, I watched Clone Wars and Rebels.
And Rebels.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm now watching the Bad Batch.
You know, you're so behind.
I am.
So, no, it's just the fact that this fucking show is so damn good, especially this fifth episode. And I'm not going to tell you why, but this fifth episode is what I believe this Star Wars franchise should have done in Disney Plus all along.
It is.
I
agree.
Dare to say that because of this fifth episode that just came out, this is probably the best Star Wars there is on Disney Plus right now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So it is fantastic. Yeah, I just, fuck, you two haven't seen it, so I can't say much about it. But yeah, go see it. So
watch it when you can.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
but it's actually very good. It's fucking phenomenal. Yeah, other than that, I mean, it's been an interesting week. I think the strike is still going on.
It is.
So which means that the longer it goes on, the least amount of
content will be out.
Correct. Today we're doing our fan casting on the movie Daredevil, the 2003 movie that stars Ben Affleck, Jennifer Gardner, Michael Clark Duncan, Colin Farrell, Joe Pantoliano, John Favreau is in this thing too, and and David Keith. So this was done in this was actually released in February 14, 2003, right? It has a running time of 103 minutes. So the budget on this was $78 million, and box office intake for this was only $179.2 million. As of right now, it stands at a Rotten Tomatoes score of 43% with critics. With audience, though, it's even less. At a 35%. Normally you always hear is like, Rotten Tomato 43%, but the audience thought it was 90%. Nope. 35%, unfortunately, with this movie. So before we start, Frank will give us a little bit of what goes on in this movie. And for everybody out there, spoilers ahead. So you've been warned, and you've been warned about this movie if you really want to see it. But so yeah, Frank, go for it.
Daredevil is a 2003 superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name. The movie follows the story of Matt Murdock, a blind lawyer who by night becomes the vigilante, Daredevil. Blinded as a child by a chemical accident, Matt's other senses are heightened to superhuman levels, allowing him to fight crime in Hell's Kitchen, New York City. As Daredevil, Matt takes on the criminal underworld, especially the ruthless kingpin Wilson Fisk, and a deadly assassin known as Bullseye. Along the way, he forms a complex relationship with Electro Nachios, a skilled martial artist and assassin. The film explores themes of justice, vengeance, and the struggle between Matt's dual identities as a lawyer and a vigilante. With impressive acrobatics and martial arts choreography, Daredevil delivers action-packed sequences as the titular hero fights for justice in a dark and gritty city. Ultimately, Daredevil is a tale of a flawed yet determined hero, striving to make his city a better place while grappling with personal demons and formidable adversaries, like the script. Right? Because this, where the hell did you get this? Right? I almost stopped reading when it said impressive acrobatics and martial arts choreography, okay? Are we talking about the fucking fight in the goddamn park? Is that what you're calling impressive choreography?
Oh my god.
Son of a bitch. All right, anyway.
This is what happens when you let AI write the synopsis. So
Yeah, I would say so.
Damn it, I knew it.
Wow.
Oh my god. So
I knew only a computer could get me to say that shit. Okay.
So yeah, so Daredevil is it's of course based off of the Marvel Comics character that was done by Stan Lee and I believe Jack Kirby and one more other person, and I hate to leave that person out, which you know what? Let me, if any of you can find to see who that third person is, that would be great. I just want to make sure.
The original creator is what you're thinking of.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Well, Frank Miller's run was the biggest run.
Yeah, but he wasn't the
Daredevil.
right. He wasn't the creator.
Yeah.
The creator. I know that was Daredevil. Jack
Bill
Kirby.
Everett?
I think that's who it was. Bill Everett.
Yeah, that's
I
what I'm
think
getting.
you're correct.
Yeah.
Adam. Yeah.
So those are the three main people that actually came up with Daredevil. And Daredevil was actually a character in comic books that honestly was not a popular character.
Nope.
When it first came out.
Nope.
It was
Not at all.
Not at all. What made him popular was Frank Miller when he took over.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. But a lot of people think that Frank Miller is the one who basically either came up with the character. How can I say the character of Daredevil has changed throughout the years, while Frank Miller did make him grittier. And I heard that Frank Miller, the reason he made him grittier was because he was mugged in New York City twice.
Yep.
And so for him to express himself, like what he wanted to do to the people that actually mugged him, he used Daredevil as his own, like gritty, beat the shit out of the criminals and stuff like that. So yeah. I think that's something I would have done too.
You gonna mug me, bitch? I'm gonna put you in a comic book.
The same
whatever
Frank,
I want to see.
Yeah, the same Frank Miller that gave us the Dark Knight back in the mid '80s. So
right. Here's an interesting thing about the Dark Knight. So basically, Daredevil became a prototype to the Dark Knight. And the reason I say that is because when he made Daredevil grittier years later than he made, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight, as you could see, has almost that same kind of, really big grittiness and, very bare knuckle, kind of street fighting kind of, essence to it. Another thing people don't realize, and people think that Daredevil has never killed. And no, Daredevil has killed people.
Yes, he has. Yeah.
He has killed people. So he's not like Batman, who doesn't, even though the character is supposed to be like a very Catholic type of character. I mean,
very religious. Yeah,
very religious and stuff like that. But he has killed. So that's one of the things that some people don't realize that, he has. So while Miller did redefine him, there were other artists and writers that have actually taken that character even further and made him a lot more interesting too. So it started with Miller, but Miller wasn't like the be all and end all out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody thinks that he only uses his like little billy club, but no, he's used all kinds of weapons, from guns to swords to you name it. And the biggest thing is people think Kingpin was his top bad guy, when in reality, Kingpin was originally Spider-Man's bad guy.
Right.
It was Frank Miller who actually brought Kingpin into it. So little tidbits there about Daredevil and the character, the comic book character. Another thing that's really cool, and this is before we start all this whole thing, because we definitely want to get into the movie. But a really cool thing is that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was inspired by Daredevil.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So if you notice, Stick, who was Matt Murdock's mentor,
Yeah.
is Splinter.
Correct.
And then of course the Hand, which is the ninja group in Marvel Comics, is called the Foot in in there too. And there's also this really cool thing where I saw this where it says that, so in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I guess the first issue. So this movie, again, like I said before, it stars Ben Affleck, Jennifer Garner. So Ben Affleck as Matt Murdock / Daredevil, Jennifer Gardner as Elektra, which was actually introduced by Frank Miller in the comic books, and then a Michael Clark Duncan, Wilson Fisk / the Kingpin. Michael Clark Duncan, of course, he's known for the Green Mile. He's known for Armageddon. Everybody says that he was just such a nice guy. He was just like this big teddy bear kind of person, just with just such a big, sweet soul. So to see him in this role the way he did it, of course,
Good actor too.
he's a good actor. I mean,
Great actor, actually, and
Yeah.
God rest his soul. He
Yeah.
passed away years ago, but
correct.
I think he was always looked at as this big teddy bear of an actor, but they didn't think he could actually play evil. And with this particular movie and another movie from Broken Lizard called the Slammin' Salmon.
Slammin' Salmon.
Yep. He
I
played
haven't-
kind of like an evil kind of guy. So
I haven't seen that movie yet. or
it's
never
not the
seen it.
greatest of the Broken Lizard kind of movies that are out there. I
Okay.
saw it recently. It's on Freevee, so you listeners, you could actually find it. You could probably find Daredevil from 2003 as well somewhere on either YouTube or some of the other apps out there
Right.
that are playing it right now. But the thing is that he was always looked at as because of the Green Mile, he was always looked at as being the nice guy, and even though he's so big and burly,
Right.
he can't be evil. And then, of course, he comes out and he plays this Wilson Fisk that we would never ever thought of him as being, because
Right.
honestly, if you look at Wilson Fisk in the comics, he was always this big, huge ass white dude.
Yeah.
And then we get somebody, and now finally we don't get whitewashing out of Marvel, or at that time, for anybody that was representation of from comics or whatever to film. And I really enjoyed that. I really loved the fact that we got Michael Clark Duncan on this.
Well, you and I differ on that because
Really?
I mean, I like the actor. I wasn't thrilled on his portrayal, but we'll continue on that. So the next one is Colin Farrell as Bullseye. So Bullseye being an assassin that can actually use any object that can be used as a weapon, and he could throw any. I mean, he's been known to throw what, like a playing card across the city and kill somebody.
Right.
It's very ridiculous, but
Yeah.
he's been known to do that. You got Joe Pantoliano. So Joe Pantoliano, who has come out on Bad Boys. He's come out on, what other movies he's come out on?
Matrix.
The Matrix.
The Matrix. Yeah. So he plays Ben Urich on this. So Ben Urich is more of he's a reporter.
Yep.
But he's basically, if you think of like what James Gordon is to Batman, that's what Ben Urich is to Daredevil.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, that's what that character is.
And then you got Jon Favreau, the great Jon Favreau as Foggy Nelson. And of course, Jon Favreau, you've seen him in everything, and he's now responsible for a lot of the Star Wars stuff happening in Disney. And then, of course, David Keith as Jack Murdock, who is Ben Affleck's or Matt Murdock's father. So here's a question to you guys. When you first heard of Daredevil, what was your thought about when this movie first got announced?
I was excited. And the idea of, okay, I didn't see Ben Affleck as the particular character as Daredevil or Matt Murdock, but I was okay. All right, I'll check it out and see what I thought. Jennifer Gardner as Elektra Nachos. Not my first pick, but they picked somebody that was at the time riding on the heels of Alias at that
Right.
point. So she was it was kind of like espionage and all that cool stuff. And she was an expert in martial arts on that show and things of that nature. And then of all things, Colin Farrell, I'm like, okay, this is a little bit out there. And honestly, he was a little bit over the top. I think a lot of the characterizations within it were over the top. Even with John Favreau's version of Foggy Nelson was a little bit over the top. As far as the characters and representation from comic to film. But I I see what they were doing within it as I've watched it over the years, over and over again. But when I first saw it, I was like, entertaining. But after that, I've watched it over and over again because during that time, you're talking, this is 2003. We've already had a Spider-Man from with Tobey Maguire. We were getting the Incredible Hulk around the same time. We were getting certain movies of Marvel nature, but they were trying to be like over the top. Like X2 came out at that time too, within that same
Right.
year, 2003. So they were trying to exaggerate certain films from Marvel to grasp everybody's content. But the thing is that when you go over the top, you go a little over the top, and then you got people like me who read the comics, people like you who read the comics, and we're fond of these particular characters, but the way they're portrayed is a little bit slightly over the top. Now, the dialogue, certain like scenes, meh. At first, I let it slide, but after second, third, fifth, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, all the way up
Wow.
to the 10th, you go,
You
oh
subjected
crap.
yourself
Yeah,
to
no,
that?
the dialogue was
Yeah.
basically I felt like the dialogue was very comic book. Let's just
Yes,
say that.
they try to make it a little bit too comic booky.
Yeah,
And kind of similar to what Ang Lee was doing with his Hulk at that
correct.
time. And they're trying to make that appeal to comic book. So it's like they're still stuttering. We don't get that Marvel cinematic universe at that point.
Right.
So they're still finding their footsteps.
And believe it or not, Kevin Feige was an executive producer in this movie.
Yes,
So
he actually talked about this in interviews too.
he just wasn't in charge, but I mean Kevin Feige has been there, I think, for people don't realize
Yeah.
he's been there for a long time. He was there for the
Yes.
Spider-Man, the Raimi Spider-Man movies.
Correct.
He was there for a lot of the X-Men movies, the ones with Bryan Singer. I mean, he's been there all this time. It's just, they didn't realize. I think all these all these studio heads didn't realize who they had in their staff that could have probably taken this to a whole new level the way he did with the MCU. So, Adam, what did you think about the Daredevil?
I mean, so I never really grew up with the comics. My introduction was more like in the animated series, like in the within Spider-Man. So that's probably like that was like what I was really basing it off of, which had I had slightly more of a Batman feel to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is back when you had the movie guy doing the trailer voice, like introducing the movie and stuff. So it was
Yeah.
definitely a movie of its time. I don't know. I mean, looking back at it now, I think it would have been really awesome to have like the Tobey Maguire universe and then this Daredevil universe combined. I felt like the aesthetic was very similar in tone. They just felt like two movies that were of that time.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I mean, the cast was like so not something that like I thought would be put together that I think that alone just made me interested in it. Especially with, honestly, I think Michael Clark Duncan and Ben Affleck were probably the two that were like one of the main reasons I wanted to see it because I was like, oh, him as Kingpin. I was like, Yeah, let's do it. Like I think it'll be one of two things. Either he will be horrible or he'll be really, really good. I liked
Right.
his portrayal of Kingpin.
Yeah.
I know we're gonna get into the soundtrack later, but I just think a better soundtrack would have probably gave it the movie a little bit more weight, especially with his character. I think like when they first showed it, it was like this unnecessary like cheesy hip hop song or something like that.
Oh, you're
And
talking
it
about
was
Oh
like
my
music.
God.
Yeah.
Are
yeah,
you really going to knock that?
it
I
was
think that
too
was
on the
a
nose.
great
That
intro.
honestly, Adam, not
You
to
know,
knock it, it to me, honestly, I did enjoy the music interludes because
no,
I
no,
like that idea.
I
But
like the rock music, but I
yeah,
think coming off of the heels of like Spider-Man, where you have like the orchestra, like it
you
set
want
a
more
bar.
composition.
Yeah, it set the
Okay.
bar to like this grandness. And the thing is that Daredevil had a lot of similarities, right? Like flying, like swinging through the city and jumping on.
Yeah.
So you already had like this not standard, but like this level of like, oh, Spider-Man, orchestrated music, flying off of buildings. And
Yeah.
this movie came out like not even a year later, and it like a lot of stuff were like a very stark contrast.
Yeah.
At the time, I liked the soundtrack because it was all rock music, and I'm a big rock fan. But I think look back at it now, I think if it had like a slightly different soundtrack and way I guess we'll get into more details, but
Yeah, we can
the
get
Yeah.
into more
casting,
details on that.
the
Yeah,
casting, I like the
definitely.
casting and um I don't know. I mean, I definitely was interested in seeing it. There was nothing really about it that told
Right.
me not to go see it in the theaters. I was like, oh, this, there's a lot going on. You got me sold. I'm definitely gonna go check it out.
Right. How about you, Frank?
So, my introduction to Daredevil was comics.
Yeah, right.
And I was actually a fan of Daredevil at the time when I was still collecting. I have a bunch of issues for Daredevil, and I liked the character. I liked the idea of what he did, how
Hmm.
his powers worked, things like that. When I heard they were going to make a movie, I was like, "Hey, cool! If they don't mess it up." And at this time, we had, like you said, Spider-Man successful, X-Men successful, which we had heard for how many years before that they were going to try to make an X-Men movie. Like
Hmm.
literally, like from the '70s when I was a kid, all the way up until it actually got made. We
Yeah.
had rumors. Oh yeah, there's going to be an X-Men movie. Yeah, sure. So once they actually did it,
Right.
the biggest thing was the reason why Spider-Man works is because they felt that deference for the character, right? Sam Raimi approaches it with the origin story, and he does it in a way where, yeah, sure, they changed some little things to it, but at the end of the day, that's still Spider.
Right.
Yeah.
And then with Daredevil, they kind of stuck to his origin, but they made these changes that you're sitting there and you're like, I mean, I know we're gonna get more into it, but the choices that they made, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about. You mentioned it earlier, and I said it's hard to tell exactly where it goes wrong because they don't give you the journey for Daredevil in this movie.
Well,
You feel like a little snippet of it.
they give his origin. That is one thing. He talks about his father. He talks about where he got his strength from. He talks about where his powers came from, which is very good. So they do get you do get an origin story within it because it's very cinematic, but you don't understand his gumption of why he's doing what he does as a lawyer, as
Right.
well as being Daredevil at the same time. So you're kind of torn between the two characters because you're seeing this person as two different people. And I think that's where they lost it.
Right.
And you have to realize too, this is in the early phases of Marvel before Marvel became Marvel. So a lot of the writers were struggling in the idea of how do we do this cinematically. So I thought,
And at the time,
yeah, at the
you could
time,
cut them some slack.
I'm like, come on, it's not Howard the Duck.
At this point, though, after we've got the series, no slack given. I'm sorry.
I know that.
Okay.
All right, all right.
Because
Well,
they got it.
we'll get into the series in a moment.
But a year later, we did get Punisher.
You mean the one with Dolph Lundgren?
which one?
Oh, the Tom Jane one came
Which
out 2004.
which was horrible. It was just a horrible movie.
It's not. We did it. It's not great.
It's it's not.
Yeah,
it's
we
not
covered that. Yeah,
Yes,
it wasn't that great. Yeah.
it's not a great movie because they, while they were trying to make a revenge movie, they kind of forgot that one, Frank Castle was in New York, not in Florida.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tampa-
There's a lot of lost things within
Yeah.
the writing, and it wasn't until we got Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. until Marvel settled as creating
Correct.
their own. And you have to realize from 1986 till now, till like 2000, I'm going to say what, 2008, they didn't get it right, but they had to jump through these hoops. Now, mind you, DC during this time, decades in between movies, that they could actually fix that and correct that. So Marvel has a better representation. And yes, they did have their crappy movies,
Right.
as we say. I don't think of this as a crappy movie. I think this is part of the starting point of where they were trying to focus for Marvel. And I think that's why Feige was involved too, because if you think about it, Feige must have had some sort of, because honestly, I look at it, I half hate it. I have a love hate for it. So I love a lot of it and I hate a lot of it. But if they actually cleaned up everything in between, it would have been a solid movie.
Yeah.
And
My thought on it when I first, heard about it was that first of all was like, oh, okay, Daredevil, cool, the character, and then Ben Affleck playing it. I was like, sure, I like Ben Affleck, and then Michael Clark Duncan. I was like, really, the Kingpin? All right, I guess we'll see where that goes, but that's not the Kingpin. The Kingpin has always been portrayed as this gigantic fat man, but he's a fat man that's completely all muscle.
He's a
So,
super wrestler.
like, right, basically like that. So, but here, of course, Michael Clark Duncan in his suit just looked more like a bodybuilder type of thing. That being said, then, of course, then there was like Jennifer Gardner, who I'll be very honest with you, I have never been a fan of her. And there's several reasons for that. One, and I'm not saying that she's a bad actress. I think she's actually a very good actress. But the roles that she's always picked for me, is like all these action roles. I just never believed her in any of them.
okay,
I never believed her in what was the series that she had?
Alias.
Alias.
Yeah.
Never believed her in that. And I watched that entire series. Like I binged it one time and I was like, okay, it's good, but she's still like, I have a big problem with all these very skinny action heroines that are like the deadliest women in the world, and then when you look at them, it's like, you look like you would break like a stick. Have you seen
Yeah.
some of these like UFC fighters? I
Mhm.
mean, they're built
And
like
they're not as tall as her, too.
right.
By the way, Jennifer Garner is very tall. Ben Affleck is tall. Daredevil and Elektra are not tall. All right. Matt Murdock is supposed to be some short, like average between 5'6" to 5'9" kind of dude,
Right.
and lightweight, not tall, 6 foot something, over 200 plus pounds. And then
Well,
you got
that part-
Elektra.
That part didn't bother me. I just think Elektra. First of all, I never liked the Electra character. I'm gonna be very honest.
Oh, okay, all right.
I have
Well,
never been an Electra, but here's the reason. I mean, I think Electra, she's basically an assassin dressed in red.
Mhm.
Basically a thorn on, Mac Murdock's, life, because nothing ever good comes out of her,
It's
whether
his
it's it,
Catwoman,
whether it's in
basically.
right, whether it's in movies or in comic books, just, that character's how can I say? I rather read about her in the comic books than I see
Mhm.
her because even in the TV show,
I was
Mhm.
just gonna say.
I was not impressed with that character.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
That being said, with Jennifer Gardner, again, not a big fan of her in this role.
Mhm.
And then of course, then there was Colin Farrell doing Bullseye, which I was like, that's gonna be interesting, I guess. But then I saw like the carving of the bullseye in his forehead. That bothered me as soon as I saw it. And
Yeah, it was too comedic.
Yeah.
okay, and we'll get into Bullseye because holy shit. I mean, that's a very interesting take that Colin Farrell took on that.
I
Um,
think there was a take on Colin Farrell being Bullseye at the time when Colin Farrell was under a lot of influence.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so what did you guys think of like the trailer? Did it do a better job than what the movie did? Did it seem like, oh yeah, the trailer basically just kind of made it seem like what it was? Was it worse? I mean, we've always talked about how the trailers, and there are some great trailers out there that make you so hyped and jacked up to just see a movie, and then you go and you go, oh,
Yeah.
or you go, well, shit, this was better than what the trailer. A good example of that is I discussed that in the last episode was
Mhm.
Gran Turismo, where like the trailer itself did not give that movie justice to what it really is. So, what did you guys think of the trailer, Adam? I'll go with you first.
I don't know. I think it matched the tone. Like after watching the movie and then watching the trailer again, it felt like the same movie. I don't think it was like better or worse, and it pretty much gave you what you were gonna see in the movie. And like I said, this is still back in the day when you had the movie guy doing the voice.
In a
So
world,
it's
In a
yeah.
world.
So it was it was kind of fun to see a trailer with that aesthetic again.
right,
No, but I think it matched. I didn't. I mean, obviously, watching it now, you can see it's there's some like cheesy parts and some campiness
right,
and stuff like that. But like I said, that's of its time, so I can't even fault it to that because a lot of movies were still doing it.
right.
But yeah, I mean, it was good enough to you know make me want to go see it. So
Right. And it's like you said, one thing to point out, this movie definitely does reflect its time. Because I
Yeah.
just finished watching, what was it? The first X-Men,
Mhm.
with Hugh Jackman and stuff like that. And while that had a little bit of, that bit of its time, it's still a very watchable movie.
Right.
This one, yeah, it's definitely a product of its time. How about you, Frank?
As far as the trailer goes, it was fine. It didn't really make me. I don't remember it making me be like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'm gonna." Because I didn't actually see this movie in the theater.
Oh,
I
okay.
actually wouldn't get it until it actually came out on DVD. And at
Hmm.
that time, me and my wife were pretty much just buying whatever movies were coming out at that time. We were like, "Oh, we didn't see this one. Let's get this and see." You know,
I see.
why not?
Okay.
You know.
Yeah. And you, uh, Mark.
Mark, there you go.
Yeah,
Ah,
there we go.
yeah.
I forgot his name.
Sorry,
Mark. Who are
I'm
you?
forgettable. It's
Who
okay.
the fuck?
Yeah,
What the
I
hell
look
is
like
this guy in our podcast?
yeah, I look like Lex Luthor and Professor Xavier, or maybe even the Vulture at certain points, depending on what comic issue you get. But
Jesus.
Damn, he went Adrian Toombs on that one.
yeah, I did. So actually, I was anticipating this movie because it was at the time, like, we had X-Men that came out in 2000. I had just moved up to Dutchess County, New York, and I saw X-Men, and I was like, okay, this is the greatest movie ever. Not really. After I saw it the second time in a movie theater. And I was like, okay, this could be better because I'm a huge comic book fan. And then over the time, we had Spider-Man. I'm like, okay, why does Spider-Man have webs coming out of his wrists. And then then we get, Daredevil and other movies like this. Daredevil was hyped up based upon its time, and I do like agree with Adam. It is what you get. So literally we got that basic MTV music video style action adventure film from people that think, all right, this is from comics. We got the genuine Frank Miller kind of nuances from pages of Matt Murdock as Daredevil hugging the cross at that point and almost falling down. Those pinnacle movements within the trailer of him going against Bullseye. But we don't get the comedic portions of Colin Farrell within that until we see the movie. And also with Elektra. Now, mind you, is Jennifer Garner my first pick? Hell no. But I was like, wow, she's hot as hell, and I would love to see her as that character. And I thought her portrayal was, for what she gave, was great. But I would have picked a completely different person if this day and age,
Right.
as well as Ben Affleck. Because like the first thing I was like, Ben Affleck is like 6 foot something. I need Matt Damon, who's like his cousin, who's a little bit shorter.
Well, again, to me
Yeah.
that never made a difference. I mean,
To me, it did as a comic book reader, and that was the thing. It's all the visuals and virtuals, and the way they were trying to cater it to was the MTV audiences, the comic book audience that was out there, and to pump it up as this is the best new action Marvel comic style movie that's out there.
right.
Now, was I entertained? Yes, I was in the theater. I'm like, okay, give it the benefit of the doubt, or Ben Affleck of the doubt. And I did that, and having Jen in there was great. And obviously that's how they got married, because after this movie they got married.
Right.
But the other actors in there, Michael Clark Duncan, we got Joey Pantaleone, who we all know for The Matrix. We have Kevin Smith appearance in there as
Yep.
well.
Right.
And it's like it's all catering those to those comic book fan addicts like myself. But there's a lot lacking within the story and everything else. But when it came to the trailer to movie, the trailer was a great hype. It didn't deliver to the extent of what I wanted completely. It was
Right.
only maybe 70% there from what I got from the actual trailer itself.
Yeah, the trailer for me, it did get me excited at first. I was like, all right. And then you see some scenes where it was like, all right, that's, they're doing comic book stuff, which is great. And then, of course, for me, the movie fell flat, of course, but it's just one of those movies where, yeah, I mean, the movie, when you go back and you watch the trailer and you look at the movie, it's like, yeah, they're both exactly the same. Compare if I had a comparison till this day, if I watched the Pearl Harbor trailer from Michael Bay, that trailer is just pure magic, the way it portrays that movie. And then, of course, you watch the movie and it's a different story. But the trailer is just beautifully done. And till this day, I could watch it because it was like, it's great. It just feels like, I was like, wow, that looks like an amazing movie. And then you watch the movie and you're like, oh, okay, there's some things there not done right. And there's a lot of movies that way. Another thing I was going to say, because since we covered this in the last podcast, and this is going to be a new thing I'm going to be covering now from this point on, is movie posters, right? So movie posters for all these movies, some of them are great, some of them are not. This had the typical, hey, I'm going to put the star front and center. And then in some cases, I think there were several posters that were released, and some of them had, of course, Jennifer Gardner behind him, with Michael Clark Duncan, or if not Bullseye, on the other side. So you could tell that it was just all, photoshopped and composited. My question to you, and I'll ask you, all of you on, what you thought of the poster, but in a world where comic book movies, of course, are taking their source material from comic books, we've had some seriously iconic comic book covers in the past. One of the things I could, off the top of my head right now that I could think of is like, let's say, Frank Miller's, Dark Knight, where you see Batman in a silhouette jumping in the background with the lightning hitting or something like that. And that is just a beautiful cover. And we talked about this before, where, sometimes posters are not the way they used to. Do you think these comic book movies, especially like Daredevil and things like that, could have used a comic book treatment, or could it, I know it's a product of its time, and I'm sure studios are like, oh, hell no, we got to have the art, we got to have the main actor in the front and things like that. So, I mean, what did you guys think of this poster? And, we could just quickly cover that and then go move on to the next thing. Whoever wants to start.
I like the poster. The one I like was the one that's just him by himself. I think it shows off his costume really, really well. Like,
right.
I don't know. The outfit looked clean. Like it didn't, I just like the high contrast. Like even the clouds looked like they were like on fire or something like that. I felt like it suited the tone for the character. So it definitely made it seem like the movie was going to be more serious based off the poster.
Right.
But yeah, the version that has like him, standing alone, it's kind of weird where Michael Clark Duncan, who's supposed to be the biggest character in the movie, is the smallest one on the poster. That one, like, just so I mean, but I get it. You got to do it in order of, casting. But like it would have been cool to have like maybe a big head Michael Clark Duncan, or just like this towering figure in the background, and then maybe, then Daredevil's in the front, and then you can have like maybe Colin Farrell, and then Elektra like evenly on the sides. When it's where it's all four of them, I'm not crazy about. I just like the one mainly where it's just him in the center.
Just him in the center, and I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm taking a look at this right now, and so it's him on top of a building, and then in the back you have kind of a cloud that looks like it's on fire, but it's also, this is in the rain. But when you look at like the one with all the other actors, so here's the thing, there is a poster that normally you see only on, I guess, in theaters, like a banner. It's actually a banner, so it has all four characters. And those are more like, character sheets that they do, because I see also an Elektra one that, so you could tell that, okay, all of this is just Photoshop shit that they do, so, but you're right. I think like the one with all the characters in it, like so when you look at the Daredevil one, it looks like, okay, he's on top of a building. He belongs there. It's actually very good compositing. As soon as you put the other ones in there, it looks very Photoshop, because you're like wondering, why is Kingpin on the top of the building in a very wrong perspective? It's just it's just one of those really bad Photoshop jobs that probably some marketing team didn't think it through. So, which it's sad, but yeah, no, I mean it's not the best poster. I mean, like I said, the one with him in it, it's not bad. Makes it look dark and a little dark and more serious. But then when they got into the character ones,
to add one more thing, this is still back when all the men were facing forward, and then women were always like showing their backside and then looking at
over the shoulder and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like the women were always like showing off more of like their physique and showing their back part than their front. So it was still of that, like that part was like okay, like that
and it still happens, man.
It's still that. I mean, we've gotten better, but like that was still like in its
that was still a major thing back then.
So, right. It's like chest forward, ass out.
Right. So here's what I would say to you guys. Did this movie live up to the legacy of the Marvel character? I mean, we've been talking about it, and obviously we sound like no, it has not. But what are the things in this movie that you think worked for this character? What did you think of the story itself? Was it a Daredevil story that you would normally see or read in comic books?
Hmm. I would say definitely lived up to the character as far as the story, the dialogue, and how it was portrayed. Completely opposite of what I would want from a movie.
Right.
The actors did their best with the dialogue that they were given. I'm not saying that they're bad actors. I think they were just spitting out what they were given, because there was that whole I would eliminate that whole park scene between Ben and Jen, and playing that whole little play game of fighting and
Right.
everything. How could a blind guy do that? I would have been like, being her, I would have been like, what the hell is going on here? It's like you have sight. There's something going on.
Right.
And then with her delivery of certain lines like, I'm Electra Nachos. And that's it. And it's like, oh, okay, we're playing that game. So I would have gotten rid of a lot of that dialogue and that kind of like action sequence and eliminate that. Just have a more witty banter like they had within the restaurant that they, or the diner that they had. And just that way, it's like, oh, uh, there's some sort of attraction, but not so imposing. uh, the character of Daredevil, very good, done by Ben. You could see the pain in him, how he pulls out a tooth, he has to eat, painkillers, and he's got a ton of medication going on. So it shows the reality of his being who he is. He's not completely superhuman. He has, extensive powers that enhances himself.
Right.
Electro was a little bit over the top, but the cool sequences that Jen had done, which I enjoyed, was the training sequences with the sandbags, and then obviously the fighting sequences.
Right.
Uh, Colin Farrell's portrayal a little over the top, but gives the gist of what's going on with Bullseye. Very much different from what we could possibly get from a Marvel TV show, because we have yet to get that point. We only got Jigsaw from when it came to something out of Daredevil when it came to that, which is a character I would like to see. But and then Fisk was, Michael Clark Duncan played a little bit over the top, but I think honestly I did enjoy it. If regardless of the dialogue, he was a little bit pompous, very much like the character.
Right.
And yeah, he kind of portrayed it like a bodybuilder, and he wasn't that big hulking mass of muscle or fat as well, and used that as his point of view, because you never saw Matt like throw a punch and go into Michael Clark Duncan and lose his fist inside
Right.
his body at that point. So there were a lot of hits and misses, not to make a pun of it, but it had the essence of what it should have been, but it didn't happen
Right.
that way based upon writing.
And you, Frank?
Look, man, I don't think this movie really stands up to the character of Daredevil. If you're a fan from the comics, it's like Daredevil light. Okay, you
That's
get,
a that's a you know what? I'm gonna have to agree with you on that. That's a really good description.
yeah, because you get Daredevil. Daredevil is, he's, he grew up being poor in New York, put himself through law school, had his dad get killed when he was young. So he's gone through a lot, and he's based on all of those things that he had. Plus, you add in there losing his sight, but gaining the power that he has as far as his sonar,
Right.
where,
Yeah.
or his radar. But he goes through all that, and it makes sense to you. And plus, we talked a little bit about him being Catholic and things like that. He's very much dedicated to the church, and that guilt that he feels, even though he's doing the things that he feels are right, he still sometimes feels guilty about the things that he does.
Right. And that's an interesting thing because I felt like the Catholic part was covered just slightly, but in the comic books, it's a
Right.
really big part
It's a
of
big
him.
part of it.
Right. So how about you, Adam?
Honestly, I mean, I got a lot of like Batman 89 vibes from this movie. I felt like they almost used it as a template. Like
They did.
the whole Rose when his father died, that was very reminiscent of like what happened in the flashbacks with Batman 1989. And then in Batman 1989, he's already established as Batman. We don't see like him building up to it. Same thing with
Right.
Daredevil. Um, and then obviously they just have a lot of similarities, like the Batman character in that. So I don't know. It was interesting to see it again, like through that aspect. And not that I mean, if you're gonna copy a superhero movie, I copy 1989 Batman. Like that's a good choice. But so I'm not saying they're copying them, but I just saw a lot of similarities.
Mhm.
Some were on the nose, some were like just probably typical, superhero stuff. But um, I don't know. I mean, like I said, my introduction to Daredevil was more in the Spider-Man animated series, so I didn't have like the comics to really base it off of.
Okay.
Okay.
It's I don't know. It was almost like I was being introduced to the character for the first time, really, as far as
Okay.
like a backstory and all that
Right.
stuff. But um, again, it's very of its time. Like like during that time when I was watching it, I was laughing at the jokes. I was
Right.
okay
Yeah.
with the fight sequences, and there were some things I really really liked. Like I liked I liked the way they portrayed the sonar. I thought it was really really cool. It was different. You never really seen it that way, especially like when
Bullseye during that fight sequence and the
yeah,
explosion happens and
yeah,
then accidentally killing Nicholas
uh
Nachios.
yeah, the father. That was really
Yeah.
cool. Even like the rain scene where like, he can see her for the first time because of the
Yeah.
raindrops. That was
Right.
to me, that was like another Mary Jane, Spider-Man is upside down first kiss scenario. Like
Correct.
it
Correct.
gave me
Yeah.
like that side of feeling. So I felt now I doubt that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that movie came out a year later, so I don't know how much or if any influences from Spider-Man was in the Daredevil movie, but
Right.
it just there was like little bits and pieces where I was like, oh, that reminded me of this. Oh, that reminded me of that. And it wasn't bad, but looking back at it now, I mean, like you said, the dialogue. I think if the dialogue was different, I think the tone would have been. I don't want to say better, but for lack of a better term, better.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the actors they did the best with that dialogue that they had. Like I felt like they all gave it 100%. Colin
Yeah.
Farrell, he went full bullseye. Like he
Yeah.
did not hold back on that character, down to flicking the peanut and killing the old lady on the plane.
Yep.
Right.
Like
And the
it
paper
was,
clips.
yeah, the paper clips. So, I think everybody did give it 100% on that.
Right.
She's just sleeping. It's okay.
Yeah.
I felt like so my introduction to Bullseye, I mean to Daredevil was during the Frank Miller time.
Same here. Yeah.
So when you read that character, and I remember somebody was telling me when I was really young, I was like, oh man, so yeah, there's this guy named Bullseye, and he could take any object and throw it, and he is the most accurate person in like the universe or whatever it is. And I was like, you full of shit. So I went ahead and bought some, bought a couple of Daredevil comic books, and I got so into it because I was like, wow, what a great comic book. And felt very adult orientated. It was just more gritty and stuff like that. So my thought was going into this that I was going to see a lot of that Frank Miller stuff, which they try to put into this movie,
Yeah.
but not
Visually, they did.
but not
Yeah.
as successfully as you would do, like, let's say, of course, the Netflix show, which the Netflix show did such. The problem is that also when we watch this movie nowadays, can there be a better Daredevil out there? It's already been done. Netflix did it. It's
Right.
fucking phenomenal, right? So So when you're trying, I try to put the Netflix stuff out of my mind and try to judge this, but it's really hard when you have, you know, um, a show that was able to flesh out this character within, especially the first season, which is almost a near perfect, show in
Right.
the
Yeah.
first season.
Exactly.
It is very hard to then judge this movie on its own when you know all you know what it's capable of in the right hands. So my problem with it, when I saw it, I was like, first of all, yeah, there's some Daredevil stuff in there. Um, but then there's things that just didn't that how can I say, whoever was directing or whoever, was writing and stuff like that, I think they did consult a lot. I think they did consult a lot of the creators and things like
I
that,
think they
but
did too. Yeah.
they tried to cram way too much into one movie. And what I mean by that is this movie should have just, I think personally, should have just done one
Story arc. And
well,
that's
one
it.
no, just like one villain, right? You either do
Yeah.
Kingpin, you either do Elektra, or you either do Daredevil. But what they did was they crammed all of those into 101 minutes, so not even 2 hours, and tried to give everybody somehow some kind of a story behind it. I mean, Colin Farrell's Bullseye really wasn't a story, but everybody else somewhat was, and it was just like very, again, they crammed it all in there. You're kind of like going, wow, there's just a lot trying to go on in a very short amount of time. So
Yeah.
that was my problem with it. It's like they should have just stuck to one character. Like if they did something where it was either Kingpin or Bullseye, right?
Yeah.
So if they would have done, like, let's say Bullseye, and they wouldn't have taken Bullseye the way they did, I think that would have been a really good movie in that sense. But they didn't do that. They tried to put everybody together, and the way they portrayed all these characters were just in some cases was really off of what the character, or at least what Frank Miller portrayed on the pages, and kind of gave you what I would say the blueprint of what these characters should be and how they should be. And they were trying to, like, okay, well, we're doing kind of, like you said, Frank, it's a Daredevil light on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that. Honestly, I think what you're trying to say, Rob, is literally they took the Sony Spider-Man 3 route where they gave us too much with 3 villains at the
Correct.
same time. And all we got out of this was a Crystal Light or iced tea or Sanka Light or Sanka coffee style Daredevil.
Your analogies are insane.
Well, Rob, it's actually funny. Your comment on having too many characters in the first movie, that was actually one of the regrets of the director, saying that he crammed too many movies, and they literally relied on Elektra being the deciding factor if
Correct.
Daredevil was going to get a sequel, and because it didn't
After Elektra movie, yeah.
yeah. So
Right.
it's kind of a shame that, like, because I think if we would have gotten like a trilogy out of Daredevil, I think it would have been one of those franchises that would have gotten better after each movie. I think they were like, cool, we did too much in the first, but it would have some commercial success. Let's get a little bit deeper in the second one,
Right.
and then build up to a nice, finale. I honestly think that if they would have made 2 more movies, it would have been like, oh, the second's better than the first, and then, oh my god, I can't wait to see the third one. Like I can only imagine. And then who knows, we may have gotten a cool, I don't know, I'm repeating myself, but I would have loved to get like a Tobey Maguire, tie-in or something like that, like,
Right.
because they would have been running concurrently with each other.
Well, the characters in the
I don't know
the
if they're different studios,
character
though.
the character
Marvel
no,
team ups.
no, that was actually Daredevil, I think, was Fox also, if I'm not mistaken.
No, but Sony was still Spider-Man, so I don't know if they would have.
Oh, that's
They were
right. No, at that
yeah.
time they would have never cooperated.
No, they
But-
wouldn't.
Yeah,
There
of
wouldn't have
course
been a
not.
Marvel
They
team
would
up.
have
No.
never cooperated. The only
Yeah.
reason Sony even cooperated with the MCU was because they're like, listen, we just screwed up this character so many times. Let's see what they could do. And all of a sudden MCU said, hold my beer, and
Right.
boom. So and that's the reason. And now they think they could actually do the job again. And we've seen, what's been going on there. So that's that's a whole other story. But
That we'll go into a little bit more when we actually do yeah.
so
Yeah.
the one thing, so Bullseye's character. So here's what I was saying. Colin Farrell, phenomenal actor,
He's a great actor.
great actor. He must have just said, fuck this. I am going to play this guy so over the top, which it bothered me because while the character of Bullseye is a fucking maniac and stuff like that, but he's just a very cold-blooded assassin. Here, he went in the different direction, and of course he has a scar of the bullseye on his forehead instead of like in the comic book, which is part of the costume. But as I hated the character when I first saw him. When I rewatched it, while I still didn't like the way he portrayed the character, my first thought was the way he walked around, especially when he was in the airport and he was going up the escalator and he has his arms out. Like if it was like, I am Jesus, look at me, I am so amazing. I was like, I said to myself, I wish I could have those balls to do something like that, where I could just walk in and go, my God, just bask in my glory or something. Because that's exactly what this character was doing. And it was just hilarious just to watch him, because you're like, this is just the most ridiculous fucking character I have seen in a long time in a movie like that, the way he portrayed him.
Yeah.
But it was just like
I would have had like a tattoo instead of like a scar, maybe like a tattoo of the bullseye, a little bit more believable. I just like that scar was so perfect, and that means that he must have done it to himself.
Yeah,
I don't know what the backstory is on that scar, but
you're absolutely right. So I think like if they, him being the psychopath that he is, he probably did the scar himself, compared to just having a tattoo or something like that. But it was just like, it was just so over the top. It was so over the top, and just not the character of the actual bullseye. But yeah, that was just like one of those parts. But also, I did have a problem with Michael Clark Duncan. So when I saw it, like I said, to me, Kingpin is a big mountain of a white guy. And all of a sudden it's like, and we're not talking about just, a regular African American. We're talking about very dark American. So we went from like milky white to very dark chocolate white, dark chocolate black. And it's like, wow. It's like, it was such a big contrast. And of course, but the one thing I will say this, he had moments.
Yes, he did.
Movie that were very cold and calculated. And I was like, okay, I liked it, but they were very far few in between. That's the problem. Right. So it's not like Vincent D'Onofrio, who had the character down to the T from the moment he appeared on the screen all the way throughout the entire series. I think it was three seasons. The entire series, he was always that cold and calculated guy. I mean, he was just, you could not, how can I say, keep your eyes off of Vincent D'Onofrio when he came on the screen.
Yeah.
For me, Michael Clark Duncan, Marco Clark Duncan did not do that for me at all. He was a character that I was like, all right, you're boring me, dude. You got your moments, but it's like, move on. So that's just me. What did you guys think about it?
I'll jump in here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have no issue with Michael Clark Duncan. I almost said Michael Clark.
Michael Clark.
Oh my God! Really?
Oh wow.
What?
Okay.
I didn't say chocolate brown, it would have been
Chocolate brown. Listen, man, I'm a dark man myself. I'm not as dark as him, but I do have color. And
Right,
I am.
exactly.
All
Yeah.
right. So it's not like, and I'm not saying that, but I'm not trying to, honestly, it's not a black thing. So I don't want anybody out there thinking, oh,
or
No,
a tan
no.
thing,
No,
or
it was
anything, or
it was
ethnic
just
thing.
it was just such a huge contrast in the sense of
what we saw in the comic.
what we saw in
to
the comics and
show.
right, comics to
Okay.
screen, and then
Yes.
of course the portrayal of how, because Michael Clark Duncan, he's a bodybuilder sometimes, so I mean, this guy's built like a shit brick house.
Yeah, look at
But
The Island, the movie The Island, where
yeah,
he,
but when you
yeah.
look at Vincent D'Onofrio, while Vincent D'Onofrio still looks very imposing, he is a heavy man that you could tell
Right.
that still it is, he's strong. So he portrays that character more towards like the comic book character as opposed
Yeah,
to
he's
looking
more
like
comic accurate, basically.
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, a little
So,
bit more comic accurate. I honestly,
but
he
you were
needs
saying,
to-
Frank, I mean,
yeah, more
yeah,
100 more pounds.
I had no issue with him as Kingpin. I actually like him as Kingpin. I
okay.
think that introduction of him, even
Mhm.
though the song people might not like it, it's actually a song that I do like. And I think that it was really fitting when he comes down and you have that beat going.
yeah.
with the dun-dun-dun-dun.
Didn't,
So
didn't, didn't, didn't,
it's
didn't,
right.
didn't.
it's by a group called, it's a group, their name is Nerd, and it's Lap Dance Kingdom is the name of the actual song.
That is correct.
Yeah, but would
So-
they have put that? So now I'm trying to get into like, and this is kind of almost on the razor's edge, I would say. If it was a white guy, do you think they would put a
Nope.
hip hop
Nope.
song in there?
They might have.
I could see it. I could see
Because
it
I
happening.
think what?
I don't.
Not
whoever
in
was
One of the
doing
guys in Nerd
soundtrack-
is white.
Not in 2003, I don't think.
No.
Well,
Because
hold on,
every
hold
time you
on,
see
hold
Colin
on.
Farrell,
Years
they
later, we
put
got
a
Tropic
crazy
Thunder.
rock song.
Yeah,
So they were definitely linking certain music genres with very specific characters.
Yeah.
Like every time Colin Farrell came on, it was like a heavy metal rock song and stuff like that. And then it's like I said, it was of its time. The soundtrack was not your typical soundtrack. It was very like what Mark said, it was very MTV. Like that, I felt like that
Yes.
was a very accurate description. Like
It
it
is.
was like now 2003 CD compilation. Like that's basically
Right.
what it was.
well, it's all about marketing and
That's
and
exactly
trying
what
to
it is.
sell- it's all about marketing and selling the soundtrack for the
Oh, of course.
For-
I
for
mean,
the
look,
movie itself.
Evanescence had 2 songs in there.
Yeah, they had
of course.
two
yeah. They had two
Right.
songs in the movie.
And the
yes.
only reason they did was because they were like the biggest thing back then in 2003 with
Yes.
with
no,
the hits that they had.
this movie actually launched their career within that year itself. If it wasn't for this movie, they wouldn't have had a hit single.
Really, I mean, I thought it was the other way
Yeah.
around. So, I mean, I don't recall who was how they became famous, or or how their music.
I
was acquired.
remember it specifically for the fact that the song came out, the album had came out within like 6 to 8 months previous. It didn't do well. So it got affixed to this movie, and they thought, okay, this is good promotion for the band. So with that, there was an interplay of a video, which became the MTV World. And at the time, MTV was still doing, hey, what is it? Music videos. But they interplayed it with movies in a sense for cross promotion.
Mhm.
And that's literally what had happened. Can't
Right.
Wake Up was the hugest hit. And it's almost as akin to A Kiss to a Rose from Batman Forever. Everybody remembers A Kiss to a Rose more than they do Batman Forever. And I had seen that in the theater with Mr. Kevin Smith himself.
I rather listen to A Kiss to a Rose than to see Batman Forever too. So I mean, trust
but
me.
the thing is that people
Don't knock
remember the
Kilmer.
song that. I'm sorry. I have
Oh,
my
that's
opinions
another
about that. That's a
podcast.
whole another podcast. But the thing is, it was at that time, and it was kind of the I'm gonna have to say the sunset of MTV at that point, because MTV was kind of on a fade out because they were doing MTV2. They're trying to do cross promotion with films to spotlight music videos as well as artists, as well within movies itself.
Right.
So it was that whole let's get this all cross promoted thing. So we got two great hits from Evanescence and promoted Evanescence. But what do people go to when they see an Evanescence show now? What do they want to hear? Those two songs. Nobody can
Are they still
remember
around?
anything. They are
Yeah.
still around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's
But
mainly her with an orchestra.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the band is still there to some
Yeah.
degree.
Right.
But the thing is that a lot of it was cross promotion. So it's that MTV crowd, just like you said, Adam. Yeah, with Bullseye, he had his own rock oriented with Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin. He had his own cues. They're marketing it on the music, the movie cross-platforming it with the movie, so that way they could sell the soundtrack. Uh, the composer at this point, nobody remembers, but the compositions in certain areas were really good,
Mhm.
as well as the
I did not
visuals.
like that. I did not like that soundtrack at all. Like I tried listening to it by itself and I just like didn't do a single thing for me. I was just like, all right, this is a very forgettable soundtrack because normally you hopefully so when you listen to like let's say Spider-Man, which was done by Danny Elfman,
Yes.
there's a theme to Spider-Man. Same thing with Danny Elfman with Batman. There's a theme to Batman. This
Yes.
had no theme at all. This let
No, it was all music.
yeah, this let the music dictate, I guess, the theme for it, which to me
The
was just
theme
like,
was "Wake Me Up." That was the theme.
yes.
Pretty much,
Literally the
Yeah.
soundtrack. Yeah.
Absolutely, because he came out of a freaking, a deprivation chamber all the time. That's where he slept. So
Michael Jackson.
yeah, exactly. Here's the whole thing that really got to me about this movie when I saw it, and especially when I saw it yesterday. And then again, you try to compare that to the comic book, but you also compare it to the Netflix show, right? So
Right.
Yeah.
comic books have the ability to show, of course, characters do things in a very exaggerated way, but on pages it works.
Yes.
Right. So Ben Affleck or Daredevil, Matt Murdock, he jumps out of a building, right? Dives straight down for like, I don't know,
like 20 stories.
15, 20 stories, and then lands on a scaffolding. Your ass should have been dead. All right. And then from
yeah, that is true.
he jumps to another scaffold that is about 50 feet away. Again, you should have been dead. And then there's another part where he jumps from one building to the other. Again, it works in comic books. And then when you compare it to like the Netflix show, you see Charlie Cox character where while he does have the abilities to have heightened senses, but you could see that he's still a human character and he gets tired and and he has to heal and he gets hurt and he has to heal and all these things. So when you think about, like, let's say the hallway fight in the Netflix show, which was gritty, it was a lot more real, done in one take from what I hear. And I met Charlie Cox one time. I even have a picture with him. And when I asked him about the fight, because I had to ask, I said, hey, did you have to practice for months for this thing? And he goes, no, I actually practiced for only like a week to get this whole thing done. And it was done in one take, but it was done in one take several times. It took about 6 or 7 times to do it. So, but then when you watch the Ben Affleck one, like, let's say, if you're going to compare two different scenes in fighting, if you compare the Ben Affleck movie,
maybe.
The bar fight
yeah.
where
Yeah.
you have fucking hundreds of bullets everywhere. He doesn't get hit. He's also fireproof. You know, when they set the pool tables on fire.
Yeah.
It it takes you out of it because you go, okay, in a comic book that would work. In a comic book, you read that and a great artist will make it look really cool. And you're like, that's a fucking awesome, story. But on film, you're like, okay, you're kind of taking it a little far. And
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, at the time, I thought it was a cool fight. You look at it now, you're like, there's something, especially after you watch the Netflix one where you go, because let me tell you, that fight in the hallway with the one in Netflix, that shit was
brutal.
brutal.
Yeah.
It was gritty. And the fact is that there weren't that many camera
cuts at all. There was only one.
It was one
complete
take
cut.
but it was
no. There was only one cut throughout.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was one take. It was just one whole take. And then what happens is, it's a camera that's following the character down the hallway, down the steps, but he is still fighting. There's no shaky camera. There's none of that shit that you see in this. Which of course makes it a lot more real, but you also have to admire the fact that it's like, wow, they really did this. Compared to this, you could tell that there was a lot of and then of course
it was more cinematic in the movie.
It was it was very CG. It was the one thing. I mean, there were several little things that I liked, in that, but like little bits. But that's what I would say. I would say like that part, and then you see Elektra when she jumps from she's on the roof fighting Bullseye, and then you see her jump to like almost like another building, and I'm like, do these guys all have superpowers?
Yeah,
so that was the part, because none of them are supposed to have those kind of powers. We
have to suspend our disbelief.
Yeah, but come on, man.
Remember, he got his powers by being blinded by the vats of Hudson River water on his face.
Rob's attitude is that Elektra doesn't have these powers. She's just a regular person with agility
come back
and
from the dead.
Honing.
She's got powers.
Well, that's where
but that's
the
not
movie
this.
Moves forward to.
That's not this.
It's not this. Even with Bullseye, he doesn't have powers. All he is very accurate with his skills.
Right.
Correct.
He could slit her throat with a card at the very end, and then, oh, I have something for you, and then takes her side and shoves it up through her, but he throws her over to the next roof.
That's redoing a scene from the comic.
Correct. Yes. They're trying to give us son of kudos, give us kudos to the actual panels that we get.
And don't get me wrong, I think that there are parts in there that I think, again, there are shots in there that are very reminiscent to a Frank Miller panel.
Like I said, with him hugging the cross at the very top of the steeple,
which is
and then
cool,
falling down. Yeah,
but here's where, for me, it didn't work the way it would have worked, like let's say on Sin City, because Sin City at least was portrayed making it look like a comic book on screen, so you could
Ang Lee's Hulk,
right? You could Ang Lee's Hulk just did not work at all. So,
they tried to make it like a moving comic book, and
they
that's where
did,
it
but it was horrible.
Yes,
because with that movie, the Hulk should not have been, I don't know, 2 stories high. Again,
actually, with every time Hulk got angry, he always got bigger in the comics. So that was the whole point and reasoning behind that. I'm not trying to defend Ang Lee. I'm just defending.
I think your point. I think both of you are making certain points. I think certain things translate well from
and certain things don't. Right.
And
exactly.
And I think that's where the things, like the fact that some of these characters are leaping from building to building, that wasn't a comic book thing, or maybe it was, but it just looked off because
it did.
Scenes,
well, the CG definitely looked off.
No, it definitely did, and that's what I was saying. There's certain things that they did in this while in the comic book it works. Here it
Yeah.
did not, because you're not establishing these people to have powers, and
Yeah.
especially Elektra was never. We were never told in the movie that Elektra was an assassin. She was just a person that knew how to fight. That was it.
Yeah,
So
she
for the
was Nicholas Nachos's
right.
daughter,
So for a
who
person,
trained.
right, for a
Yeah.
person who's never read the comic book, you walk in and you go, so she just all of a sudden knows how to like she fights, and she has these sighs, and then she's doing her little, her little music video with stabbing the sandbags and all these things, which was another scene that I think was useless. But it didn't, like there were just things in there that I was like, okay,
Same thing with the kid, though.
it's a product of his time. Oh yeah, the whole the cartwheel kick. Yeah, that was just
Yeah.
He's a kid who he loses his sight, and somehow he becomes instant ninja.
exactly.
Just, all right, cool.
Because what they never did was they never showed, hey, his actual origin is also Stick, the character Stick, who actually trained him.
That is not there, but he
It's not
was
there.
actually taught by a rat in the sewers with a bunch of turtles.
That's a different.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, moving on that.
Damn you,
So,
yeah, leave it to me.
Yeah. So, okay. So, was the running time of this movie too much?
No.
Here's the problem. It's only 101 minutes. If you're gonna have that many characters, you probably should have had a
2.5 hours long.
Right, a longer movie.
Well, the director's cut.
It probably would have benefited
Director's
from
cut is like 2 hours.
a longer running time.
The director's cut is how long is
2 hours
it?
and 3 minutes.
Oh, gee. So they put in an extra 13 minutes. No, you need like a 2.5 hour movie for all those characters.
2.5 hours for all those
13 minutes was more of, hey, I just need to have somebody curse and have Coolio, because the part with Coolio was the part that got cut off in the theatrical cut. That was
I had weed too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was put back into the movie, and I'm like, who cares? So little did I know that Coolio could be so funny on screen. So what did you guys think of the cinematography? There were some that I liked. It was kind of all over the place.
All over the place.
I'll leave this one to you, Adam, because you definitely know about this more. What did you think about the cinematography on this?
Yeah, I think if they would have just stuck with not to tie back to like Batman, but like, when you're watching like a Batman movie, it just carries through. There's like that through line of like the dark, the gritty,
right.
Yeah.
Since this was in that same ballpark, they should have just kept that all the way through. Like, I would have preferred just like constant rain, like just make Hell's Kitchen always gritty, rainy, like show the like the city itself feels dangerous. Like when you go from like a sunny walking during the day in a park with kids, and then you're doing this funny play fight on a seesaw.
Yeah.
But then 3 hours pass by, and then next you know the whole city's crime ridden. It doesn't feel like the same city. It feels like two different locations.
Yeah, that is correct.
At least Gotham during the day still feels dangerous. And,
yes, you're right.
So I think that's but when it was dark, that was cool. I just wanted that to be like consistent throughout.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, citizens of New York City will disagree with that for the fact that we need the tourists to come in. So we don't want to have people come into New York City because this is based in New York City. We want tourists to come in so we could rob them. And then
oh, Jesus.
Just kidding, everybody.
This is like his public announcement. It was like, listen, come to New York. I need the money.
No. But the thing is that it does show, like you're saying, Adam, it does show a gloominess of what it is and how they have to rid crime. I do agree with that. You have to have a steady pace of what the scene is for that location.
Right.
And yeah, I do agree that whole seesaw thing and everything. That was, I was like, are you kidding
So,
me?
right. So here's the thing. Let's go into this. So, what are 5 things that you liked about this movie? Or what are the 5 things that worked in this movie?
I can go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
That worked. His costume, I liked it. I liked his
Okay.
outfit.
Yeah.
I felt
You
like the
Frank.
leather wasn't overdone. Like
Okay.
I don't know. I just like the color of it, and the cowl didn't look weird. Like I said, I'm not basing this compared to the comics. I'm just basing what just like on
Right.
screen what looked good. Because especially when you're introducing like a cowl, it can either look really doofy or it can look like it fits the actor's face and they can still act and show emotion.
Right.
Um, I like the sonar powers when they showed that. I thought that was pretty cool. I felt like that aged pretty well, especially like that whole rain scene, stuff like that. The cast, I grew to like the cast. Like I said, they did their best with the. I would say probably like Electra. I would be curious if it was given to like another actress, like I don't know, like a Keira Knightley or something, like just someone just somebody different.
She looks even more frail.
But I mean, I'm just saying, like there were so many actresses in that time. It just, I think it would have been a little bit different if a different. Oh, well, then again, it's the same script, so who knows? It probably would have just been the same thing, but it would have been interesting. Like I guess they kind of had chemistry, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner, but I
I mean, they
think,
got married for real, so
well, no, definitely. I'm just,
Yeah.
They got divorced too.
yeah.
Leave them
um,
alone.
and I like the bar fight scene. I thought that it had its moments.
right.
Yeah.
But like you said, some things are a little over the top. But I think honestly, I think because of I'm pretty sure this movie is what gave him the role of playing Batman down the line. That and maybe the town. I think that it showed like his physicality and like his
Right.
toughness. I feel like taking the two characters who played in those movies, it kind of made the Frank Miller Batman versus Superman movie type of tone. Um, but yeah, I
Honestly,
would
I
I would
think
stick with that.
I think so one of the reasons that I heard that Ben Affleck did this movie. Well, first thing is Ben Affleck did not try out for Daredevil. He tried out for Bullseye. And and Colin Farrell tried out for Daredevil. So they switched those two. But one of the things I also heard was that, and I think Kevin Smith is the one that said it, was that Ben Affleck actually did this movie because his passion would have been to always do a Batman movie, but he knew that he would never do a Batman movie, or they would never pick him to do a bat. So this is the closest that he will ever come to playing somebody like Batman. Little did we know he would play Batman and shit later down in the future. But for me, I think 5 things that worked. Like you said, Adam, I like the radar sense, which is something that I was in the Netflix show. I was like waiting to see if they were going to do something like that. Not exactly like it, but maybe something that indicates that he has this radar, thing happening. And they never touched upon that in the Netflix show, which is still worked. I think it was still, phenomenal. The fact that it does work without that. The costume at the time, I thought it was pretty good. Um, you know, Back then, material science, honestly, was not the way it is now, the way they do costumes. So, and not only that, but keep in mind that a lot of the movies nowadays, so perfect example of that would be Anthony Mackie when he became Captain America in the uh, Disney Plus show. The cowl that he had on would open up in certain places, so like on his cheek and stuff like that, it would wrinkle and it will open up. And what they did was they actually fixed that with CG in order for that cowl and the and whatever, covers his face is always going to be sticking to his face and not look like it was just a cheap costume. Back then, they didn't have that technology. So, like you said, I think the cowl for the time actually worked. And I think the outfit actually worked too for the time. So, and then the only other thing that I really liked, so there's a baton scene, which a lot of people criticize, but I kind of like it. So when he's getting ready in the beginning of the movie, you see him, right. So he takes the baton and he twirls around. You see the wire go all around him. And that is a scene. Those are scenes from the comic book when you see him use the baton, that baton or whatever it is. You see the wire like all over the place.
Yeah.
And, so I thought that was kind of a really cool scene. That's when I thought, oh, wow, they're doing it just like the comic books, which is really great.
Yeah.
And because people would criticize, like, so he's in his apartment. Why is he doing all this and not doing it in front? And the people who will ask that questions are people who are not fighters or people who are, this is a guy that's trying to psych himself to go into a fight. And he's going to do that. And a lot of people will do that, whether you do weapons fighting or anything like that, before you start something, you kind of like, try to get yourself psyched into it. So that's why I kind of liked it. But those are about the things that I liked on that, when it came to this movie was, the costume, the radar sense, and that little scene right there for me. I think that's what worked for me in the movie. How about you, Frank?
That seesaw was a real New York seesaw. All right. We've all been out in the park and seen that type of seesaw.
Did you touch that seesaw, Frank?
Now they're illegal, I think.
As a kid, I probably did. But that was what we had back in the day. That was a
how many times we got launched out of that because we decided to do some stupid shit.
Yeah, just here, like you sit here. I'm gonna jump from this ladder to it and launch you.
Yeah.
So the things that worked. I actually like Colin Farrell as Bullseye because he's playing it as somebody who doesn't give a fuck. That's the bottom line on that one. He's just like, you know what? I'm just cashing a check here. I'm going to play this thing way over the top. They're going to be okay with it.
Right.
Nobody's going to stop me. So screw it. I might as well just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
The Joe Pantoliano is always good in whatever he's in. So he's playing Ben Urich. He's believable in that part.
Right.
So you can never go wrong there. I actually think, like I said, Michael Clark Duncan as the Kingpin, for me, it worked. I think that intro with him with music actually is one of the parts that I really like about the movie. Is that 4?
Wilson
Fisk. I mean, you don't have to technically do 5. I mean, for me, I only did 3 because I think that was the only thing that worked for me.
Oh, wait, the sleep deprivation chamber. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, and him munching on the drugs like his painkillers as a blind man because
right,
he's not going to swallow. Okay,
those are the things. Like, you're still portraying a guy. It's not superhero. You're not playing Wolverine or something like that.
He's got scars.
Playing Daredevil.
Right.
You know what I mean? Exactly. He's got scars. He's got limitations. Granted, sometimes you don't see that because, like you said,
that was the problem.
20 stories out of building.
Right. Well, that was the problem. The problem is that he does all these superhuman things, and then when he's fighting, it doesn't seem like nothing's happening to him. While the Netflix show, you could see his ass getting kicked. You could see him, you could really see him struggling. While on this is just like, listen, I could do things very easily. But then he takes off his shirt, and you could tell that he's been.
It's too much.
He was prepping for the movie The Accountant. It's okay.
Okay.
For the other thing that.
Oh, go ahead.
Hang on. They got one more thing that bothers the shit out of me.
Okay.
And yes, it's part of the
things that didn't work in this movie. Hold on.
You want to get to?
Yeah, because we do have, the things that
time
Okay, all right,
limit.
that's fine.
the things that didn't work in this movie. So, I mean, they are, so what things do you feel did not work in this movie? For me, and I'll start it off really quick and I'll do it very quickly. For me, the music was just okay. I think it got in the way and it wasn't, it's a product of its time. To me, now it doesn't work. Did the narration of him talking work? I hated it. I don't know why, but I did not need it to be, how can I say, explained. Maybe the audience did, but I felt like I didn't need that. I think it should have just had one antagonist, not fucking three people.
I agree.
In certain things, I definitely think Bullseye for me didn't work at all. And of course, I thought it was kind of too dark in certain scenes, way too dark. And of course, probably one of the biggest ones is that the fight between Elektra and Matt in a park fighting in front of a bunch of kids. That was just a very stupid scene that I think if they were gonna fight, I think they should have done that in a night scene or something. Or, let's say, hey, she starts to fucking, run through alleys and go through, rooftops, and he's following her.
Scene.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's going, how the fuck is a blind man, following me? And then the fight.
Right.
I would have rather have that as opposed to, hey, let's do an exhibition fight in front of kids. Okay. So those are my biggest gripes on that.
Do I
think,
get
go ahead.
my 5 things that worked in this movie?
Go ahead, dude.
Okay.
Sorry, Mark.
Sorry.
It's all right. I kind of got skipped on a couple of things, but I don't care. On this one, the one things that worked were their gumption to get the characters played. They did a good job of trying to get the characters as what they were from the comic to film. Now, the one person that we kind of ignored was Karen Page. She was there within the film, just like within the TV series. She was there for Foggy. What they did was get the characters in their characterization from comic to film, which was great. So that's another aspect that I enjoyed. But it was a little bit over the top. That was the only drawback to it, is that they were the character, but they were a little bit over the top. Definitely Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin, because I hate the idea of whitewashing of certain characters. I love the fact that we had somebody of color as Kingpin. We cannot have these consistent characters that are always, all right, well, he was white in a comic, we have to make him white in the movie itself. So I was glad
I'm not saying that I was against it. I just think that, certain.
I'm not saying you.
No, but I'm just saying, in case people wonder, I always feel like if there's a character out there, and how can I say, if it's a tertiary character, it really doesn't, wasn't as, fine, you could change him. But when you have a set character that's been around for so long and is a icon in comic book lore, all of a sudden you decide to change him, it just doesn't, to me, I don't think it does. I mean, unless he did if he would have done an Oscar worthy fucking performance, then I would have been like, you know what, screw the comic book. But he didn't. So that to me, that's why I was like, okay,
I wasn't judging you.
No, I felt like there was, like, a little shot over my bow, but go ahead.
No, I wasn't judging you. I'm just saying, right. But I'm just thinking
it's okay. It's okay, Mark. We'll have words after the podcast. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, it's like, of all people, me saying whitewashing. But the thing is, it's also too, the characters were done very well, but the thing is, the story was kind of, like you stated, focused on too many at the same time. It had to be centered on one villain and Matt's struggle with something.
Right.
And it can't be just that. It could have been a start of a journey his introduction, and then one villain, and then moving on. And it would have been perfect, but they didn't really learn that. They just jumped into the Sony spiral, or even started the Sony spiral, because
Right.
think of what Sony did with Spider-Man 3. They threw in 3 villains at that point,
Right.
and it screwed up the whole series, and then they had a reboot, and then after that they rebooted again.
Okay.
But that's about it.
All right. And how about you, Adam? 3, like maybe I don't know, 2 to 3, 5 things that you didn't feel that worked in this movie.
I would say, yeah, I mean, similar notion where, it's just too many characters. And if you are going to have that many characters, then just have a longer runtime. Like a good example, the Batman, Matt Reeves, they had
Yeah.
multiple villains and multiple characters, but because that movie was almost 3 hours, yeah, it was a long movie, but everybody had their beginning and middle and end,
Yeah.
right?
And
Like,
it was a
you felt the
phenomenal
struggle.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which had
So
Colin Farrell in it, by the way,
exactly.
as
It's a
Penguin.
penguin.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? So like I think, because of the shorter runtime, it affects how much you can put into a movie. And yeah, so that, that's one thing that, if it was longer or just less characters, if it was less characters, I probably would have just preferred Kingpin, Daredevil and Elektra. Like those 3 I think would have been more than enough. I think if they were going to keep it at the same runtime. I would change the look of Bullseye. It was just too different from everybody else. Like, the fact that he had like a scar in his head, and he just stood out. Like anywhere he went, he just stood out. It was just, which, like I said, you got to suspend your belief, but at the same time, you're like, okay, if that guy was walking in the airport, he would have got stopped
Oh my
right before
God, yes.
customs. You know,
Yeah.
It is 2003.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I would be interested in like who else could have played Elektra. I think I would be curious on a different. I don't know who. I can't really think of anybody.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
would
think-
say Mila Kunis.
We'll get into
Yeah.
the fan casting in just a moment, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, that'll be great.
Yeah, but that, yeah, I would say those are probably like my top gripes.
The top gripes. All right, so now we get into the fan casting portion of this. So here's one of the things that I found out. So remember how I said that Ben Affleck actually tried out for the Bullseye role,
Right.
and then vice versa with Colin Farrell. They
Mhm.
actually asked Ben Affleck. They not Ben Affleck. Of course Ben Affleck was there. They asked Matt Damon and Vin Diesel and Guy
To play
Pearce
Elektra.
to to play. Yeah, exactly. Wouldn't
Wow.
that be great? To play Daredevil, and they all turned it down.
Right.
So,
So
probably read
Ben
the script.
Affleck. Wait, hold on. Ben Affleck's cousin, Matt Damon, who is my pick for like somebody to be cast as Daredevil.
he already turned it down.
He already turned that motherfucker down.
Yes.
Who would have been perfect, but based on his size, his height, his build.
You are so fixed on his height. Here's what I would say, and I'll challenge you to tell me that I'm wrong. Did you have a problem with Wolverine in the movie being 6 feet tall?
Yes.
No, I didn't, because when I saw freaking
I
Hugh
didn't.
Jackman,
I saw Hugh Jackman in the first place in the very beginning before the movie came out, and somebody said that dude over there. I'm like, dude, he's way too freaking tall.
that's right. But when you saw him play it, you forgot
He
about that.
portrayed
didn't you?
I did forget about it, but I still
Thank
had
you.
it in
Okay.
my head because I saw the guy in person.
Because a Wolverine fucking because a human being that's 5'1" does not work on the screen, dude. So of course
Now,
you're gonna
Mark, now you know how Rob feels about Kingpin and Michael Clark Duncan.
there you
Yeah,
go.
I know. Well, it's like it should have been Danny DeVito as Wolverine.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah, that would have fucking gone
But
great.
technically, that's what he was. A little hairy, little.
No, first of all, Danny DeVito is not a fucking chic brick house because Wolverine, even though he's fucking 5 feet tall, he is all fucking muscle. All right. Danny DeVito is just a pudgy fucking character. Okay. Regardless of what era in his life he was in, he was never in a athletic.
All right, how about Harry Potter
What
himself?
It's
Yeah, Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah,
Daniel
Daniel Radcliffe
Radcliffe.
could actually, because he's shorter, he's a little hairier, still could get away with it, and
Yeah,
he
but
can still
he's
get
not
away with it within
he's
Marvel.
not 5 feet tall.
He's within 5.
No
No, he's
human
short.
being
He is short.
Yeah, he's like 5'5".
Hold on.
after look after having Hugh Jackman portray
That's
Wolverine.
a whole foot difference.
After having Hugh Jackman portray Wolverine, it's going to be very hard to fill in his shoes. All right. So if you all of a sudden put a short man and you're like, whoa, what happened to the fucking, what the person we saw?
Daniel Radcliffe is 5'5", and Hugh Jackman is 6'3".
Exactly.
Okay.
8 inches different, which makes a big difference in
Hey,
size.
just text my wife.
But does it matter? But does it matter? That's what I'm asking, man. That's your wife.
Ask your wife.
Took you a minute to hear that one, right?
Oh my god. So is your wife gonna play Wolverine then?
Yeah, she calls me Michael Clark Duncan.
Oh damn. I didn't know you had it like that. Okay. Some
Oh,
people are the
man.
Sheboygan people. That
Yeah.
being said,
Oh wow! Some of this is
wow,
gonna get cut.
we just went there. Okay,
We
but
went a classic episode, everybody.
look,
so,
man,
yeah.
I just think that as long as the character's portrayed the right way, that it doesn't matter the height. Now, that being said,
I understand your perspective on that. Yeah.
That being said,
Okay.
if let's say in the comic books it makes sense for Wolverine to be short. So in other
Yes.
words, let's give a perfect example.
All right.
Alpha Flight's Puck, who is a little person,
Okay.
right? And all of a sudden you change that to somebody who's, let's say, 5'5". Would that bother you? Of course it would bother you, because in the comic book they make it a big deal that he is a little person.
Yeah, he has to be the
Well-
little guy from the Pirates of the Caribbean
Right? But what?
playing that character.
There's a reason why he's short.
Yeah.
He's actually 6 feet tall.
Who? Puck?
Puck, yes.
How is he 6 feet tall?
Okay, Puck is possessed. He's got a demon inside of him that he can only hold.
From the comics.
And-
oh, I guess he didn't
Right.
read Alpha Flight.
He didn't read Alpha Flight.
I did read it, but I don't remember it. Holy shit, it's been a while.
Yeah. So when that demon escapes from him, he's at his regular height, which is like 6 feet something, and he's actually much older. He's like in his 80s or 90s.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So
Yeah,
let's take
so-
that. So let's take that example. So imagine all of a sudden you do the same character, but instead of him being 6 feet tall, you just shrink him down for, I don't know, a foot. It wouldn't make sense. And not only that, or let's do the opposite. Maybe he is 5'5", but then he gets possessed and now he's 6'5". You understand?
Well,
it just doesn't make sense to change it that way.
Wolverine in the comics is 5'3", but he's also 300
Yeah,
pounds.
5'3",
because of his-
300
Yeah,
pounds
yeah,
of
yeah.
and not only that,
Yeah.
but he's always been portrayed as
And he's
like,
also like slouching, and he's always hunched over, so that makes him look even shorter when he's like kneeling down. And
right. But the
But-
thing is, Wolverine has never looked short when he's in a panel by himself. Only when he is next to the other characters. When they draw Puck looks like a short person. Right? Granted that he's possessed, but what I'm saying is it doesn't matter, because unless there is something that has to do with the person's height, then it wouldn't matter. So Ben Affleck being 6'5", and then Daredevil being, I don't know, 5'7", shouldn't fucking matter, man.
Daredevil is 5'11" to 6 feet tall in the comics.
Oh, look at that shit. He just looked it up. You're wrong. We're talking about a 5-inch difference. And you know what? For some women, that would be fucking huge. But right now, this is This is not a big deal.
All right. We're in podcasting gold at this point with this conversation. So let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. Who would you change in the cast? Like, I mean, it's, again, Ben Affleck, and they had 3 people before.
Yeah.
Honestly, if we were, I mean, the thing is that this fucking movie was already made into a series. But let's say that the Netflix thing exists.
Mm-hmm.
You said
Who
Guy
do-
Pearce
They
was
said,
interested?
yeah, Guy Pearce was
That would be
actually
interesting.
was
That'd
approached
be
to do,
interesting.
yeah, was
Okay.
approached to do this
I
character.
would see a Guy Pearce version of this movie.
A Guy Pearce version, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
I mean, they also approached Vin Diesel, but I can't see Vin Diesel as
No.
uh,
No.
I've
Unless
already
it was
said
about
it,
family. Maybe.
Yeah, a Catholic Church family. All right. I already stated it, Matt Damon, but they approached him, he denied it. But okay,
right.
as Daredevil and Matt Murdock, by the way.
Okay. I don't know, man. I mean, I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know who I mean, maybe somebody nowadays.
Yeah, I'd pick
You know who I'm thinking? You guys seen Boondock Saints?
Of course.
Yeah.
yes.
The guy who played young Indiana Jones, Patrick what's his name?
Oh, I knew you were gonna say
Sean Patrick Flannery.
Yeah.
Sean Patrick, right? Yes.
I mean, he's a redhead, just like Matt Murdock is supposed to be in the comic books. And at least in that movie,
He's not redheaded. He's yellow. He's got blonde hair.
He's gone here. Yeah.
does he have blonde hair there? Why did
Yeah,
he,
he's blonde hair, blue eyed.
Why did I see him red? I saw him somewhere that he looked like he was redheaded.
He would be actually, honestly, he would probably play the best Danny Rand when in his younger years, but that's just me.
Right. He's into mixed martial arts, I hear now.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
He has his own dojo at his house.
Yeah. How about what's his name? Oh, shoot. Who portrayed Marty McFly?
Michael J. Fox?
No, the one who did
Eric
original.
Stoltz?
Eric Stoltz.
Eric Stoltz? Okay. Yeah, I could see
Okay,
it. A younger
he'd have to work out a
Eric
lot.
Stoltz.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
look, you put him on a workout regimen. I could see it.
I could see that too back in the 80s. And Eric Stoltz. Okay.
Yeah.
It got me thinking. I'm thinking maybe Steven Dorff during that time might have been able to play a good.
Maybe. Yeah.
Matt Murdock / Daredevil. Yeah. I
Right.
can see that.
Back in his
That's not
Blade
bad.
heyday.
Yeah.
Not bad at all.
The guy who played in Kingsman, Taron Egerton.
Taron
Hmm.
Egerton. What
I
about
think could
Ethan
have done
Hawke?
Ooh.
A young Ethan Hawke, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, that would be a very different Daredevil.
Yeah. And he could give it he could emote properly too for
How about Christian
both
Bale?
Matt Murdock.
How about Christian Bale?
Nah, screw Christian Bale.
Okay.
Damn, you said that like he.
What about Christian Bale?
I do
Bullseye?
like no, I do like Christian Bale, but as
You know
an
what?
actor,
That's not
but-
bad, Adam. Christian Bale as
Christian Bale's Bullseye.
Bullseye. And
I could see that he did play an American Psycho, so,
let him kind of go off on people just like he did behind the scenes.
yeah, yeah,
You know.
and playing a lot of Huey Lewis, and
Yeah, no, that's interesting. How about Elektra? Here's my biggest gripe with Elektra. First of all, in the comic book, she's supposed to be. First of all, Frank Miller based Elektra from some bodybuilder that was back then, and I forgot who it was.
Probably Rachel McClish.
No, it wasn't Rachel McClish. I would
Really?
remember her because I was fucking in love with that woman. But it was, I forgot who the name is, and if you look up, Frank Miller in Wikipedia or Elektra in Wikipedia, it tells you who it was. But it was a bodybuilder that he based her off of.
okay,
So that being said, I would be like, okay, so if you get a woman in that role, she should be a woman that looks athletic, that looks like she can really take care of herself and not look like some Betty Crocker person that walks in with zero fat on her or whatever it is. That looks like she's a runway model. I mean, I can't see that being her, because she is supposed to be a fighter, an assassin. She's supposed to be a very skilled assassin with a lot of different disciplines. And I didn't see that. I don't see that. Look, I don't see that with Jennifer Garner. I don't see that with Maggie Q. I don't see that with all the people that they try to portray, or all the women that they try to portray in movies. I just don't see that. The closest maybe that I saw something like that, God, I forgot the actress, but she really played a psychopath where, you're like, holy shit, I wouldn't mess with that woman.
When you started saying like athletic, I was like, what? You're talking about Mary Lou Retton?
No, more like, oh my God.
Back
She's-
in the
I mean, what about like
But
a
if you're talking,
Mia Jovovich or like a Kate Beckinsale, right? They have like a good history of like
Mila
Kate
Jovovich,
Beckinsale, yeah.
yeah,
Maybe.
could do it.
I
I would
mean,
say for the height wise, I would say Mila Kunis.
I'm
Yeah.
more, no, for me, it's more, okay, so if you think about, and I'm not talking about when she got fired, because when she got fired, she did not look like she did in her MMA days, but like Gina Carano
Yeah,
would have been, because Gina Carano, beautiful woman, even
yes.
though, beautiful woman. And then when she was actually an MMA fighter, I mean, if you look at her and you look at her photos,
Mhm.
she looks like somebody that will fucking kill you on the spot.
Oh, they're very
Right.
true.
A person like that would have fit the Electra, persona, I think, a lot better, except that Gina Carano is not a very good actress at all.
I have somebody who can play Electra.
Who?
Good.
Does anybody watch wrestling?
Not
AEW.
anymore. Like when they first started. Why?
So there's a wrestler. Her name is Britt Baker, and I think that she would actually be a good choice.
But is she a good
if
actress?
you
That's
were
the
gonna
whole
pick
thing.
somebody.
Hmm.
Well, she's a wrestler, so they have to be good actors to be able to pull
Whoa,
off their
whoa,
storylines.
whoa, whoa. We have seen many wrestlers get on film, and you're like, you should not do that. Okay? While they have been others.
It's a fantasy cast. It doesn't matter if she can go ahead.
What?
Yeah, you just want to make it better. You don't want to make it, you don't look a fantasy.
I think
physically,
she could definitely pull that off.
okay. And so how about if we're gonna keep Bullseye and Kingpin? Kingpin, it's very hard. Like, yeah, the first one I would have said, I was like, oh yeah, D'Onofrio, but is there another person out there that can play that the same way? And it's kind of hard to think of that.
I'm gonna throw out something that's a little bit odd for Kingpin, and it works in the wrestling world. And no, I'm not whitewashing this, everybody. I'm putting in Mark Henry.
I don't even know who that is. Again, you're
Yeah,
going into the
yeah.
wrestling. You're going into the wrestling world. And
Frank will know this. Mark Henry.
Yeah,
he was
sure.
yeah.
he was
I can
like
see
the
it.
world's strongest man. He did that.
Yes.
He has chops in acting within the WWE. And if you look at him, he has the mass, he has the build, it's muscle as well as bulk as the way
Right.
he is, and he presents that, and he's able to act that way. And I think he would have been perfect for it. And he doesn't have to be a white man, it could be a black man, and that's what I would want. It's a little by diversity. Now, if it was somebody different, if you want to whitewash this, it would have to be the Big Show. It'd have to be
Yeah.
Paul himself and
Paul White. Yeah,
Paul Levesque. Is it not Paul Levesque?
No.
Yeah, Paul White.
that's Triple H.
Yeah, that's Triple H. Sorry, Paul White, who was is Big Show, and he has the thing too because he has the weight, he has the size and the dimensions. Because Paul's like almost 7 feet tall. It's not as big as
And he's bald.
and he's bald as well. Yeah,
right.
and if he shaves, it works perfectly too.
And if they add like more to his like outfit, he would look even more enormous, like with the suit and everything. They can definitely add like more padding,
Right.
and
Correct.
he's
I mean,
already
yeah.
a very tall person, so he would have like that big stature, this brick wall looking type of. Yeah, that would be really. That would have been a cool choice to see, like just up against like physically
Right.
with
Yeah, because
a
Right.
smaller
wrestlers are
Daredevil.
inherently actors anyway when it comes to
Yeah.
professional wrestling, and they're able to spit out the dialogue and present it in emotionally where it is because they're doing it in front of a live audience all the time.
They
So
are,
do
but I think, the character of Kingpin, besides him just being a big, big guy and that, big thug or whatever it is,
yeah,
there is a very deep character in there. And when you actually read, a lot
Yes.
of who Kingpin is, you need like a lot of what I would call emotional uh background for that, which would
Which is why
really
it works for D'Onofrio.
D'Onofrio, who can actually emote
yeah.
those really good
Well, he
moments,
yeah.
very well, which a wrestler honestly does not have that. They might actually be able to show off in front of, people and do, all this crazy acting. But when it comes to like the subtle things or like the really nitty gritty that makes the character, what makes the character, I don't
Hmm.
think any of those wrestlers. Now, there is a wrestler that might actually get away with that.
Who
And
that?
that'll be what's his name? Batista.
Uh,
I think Batista would have, because Batista has actually been shown to be actually, become actually a very good actor.
He's
he
actually
He's
is a
very
done
great
good.
some,
Yeah.
actor.
yeah,
I
he's
do agree with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so and he's big enough, and I think he would be a different portrayal of him, but I think he has that emotional range
All
that
right, Dave Batista, we're saying it now. You need to audition for Kingpin.
okay. How about Bullseye?
Oh, I Timothy Oliphant.
Timothy Oliphant?
Yeah, I would say he would have been perfect. He knows how to play Psycho.
Okay. Brad Pitt?
Hmm.
Nah.
Nah.
Not
Well,
Brad
yeah, we
Pitt.
already know him. Yeah.
Not Brad Pitt. Because Brad Pitt knows how to play a cycle too, but
That is true.
I don't know.
I don't think I think he could have done it. I don't think it's out of the range for Brad.
For Brad Pitt,
Brad Pitt,
no. It's
but
just he would never do it probably. But yeah, I mean, I think he could.
oh, Bullet
Um,
Train. I mean,
What about Vince Vaughn?
no.
No.
mm,
Uh,
I don't know. No. Um, I don't know, man.
I was putting a swingers thing in there because you got Fat
that's
Bro.
what I was gonna say. You're thinking of doing like the swinger days, and even then, I don't think he could have done it.
Right. I mean,
Although that movie that they did, Freaky,
Yes. He did
he's
play
actually really
a
good in that.
slasher. Yeah. A friend of
but
actually mutual family member supposedly wrote that.
by the way, I think I just forgot. Like Michael Chiklis, I think would also been a good
Yes.
kingpin too. I think.
I was thinking that too because of how
Yeah,
he is stocky and regardless of his height, I think it would have worked. But the fact of how he was able to present himself, yeah,
Right. Hmm. So going back to Bullseye, people who could play Bullseye, I mean, I don't know.
That's a tough one because depending on the portrayal of the character, if we're going off of how he was played in this movie,
mm.
that's kind of tough.
Yeah, no, if it's played the way, let's say that it's a good portrayal and kind of
All right.
accurate. I mean, how about what's his name? Jude Law.
Yeah, but that's
Maybe.
top notch acting. I'm thinking of somebody who's more of a
Top notch,
character actor.
top notch acting.
Well, in a sense that he's always presented in a lot of like films that we all know is presented highly and highly regarded. I'm thinking more of James Marsden
Hmm.
That's
or
good.
Marsters,
Right.
who played Spike in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV
Yeah.
show. He knows how to play
yeah, actually, that
Psycho.
would be a good choice.
He knows how to do accents perfectly because he was trained by
But wait a
Anthony
minute.
Stewart Head.
Is the character of Bullseye with an accent?
He is supposed to be of some sort of like English, Irish, Scottish descent.
Is he?
Oh, so then what about like an Ewan McGregor type?
Ewan could probably get away with it as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know
too.
who?
Yeah, he's Scottish.
Charlie Hunan, because he's
Yeah,
British.
yeah.
True.
You could do him, and he's played a freaking psycho. Also, but maybe Sam Witwer also is pretty good.
Oh, Sam Witwer. Yeah, definitely. I could see
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him doing it too. And he has that look on his face where that he looked like he could go psycho on somebody or something
And
You
like
he's
know
that.
and he's
who?
really pale anyway, so it
Yeah.
works.
Who's the one in the Batman who played Penguin?
That was Colin
Colin
Farrell.
Farrell.
I know, just
Okay.
For a
All
second
right.
there, we thought you were serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Sam Rockwell.
Sam
Oh
Rockwell,
my
yeah.
God,
What?
yes, that would
Yeah.
actually be
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
that would work. He did play Psycho in a couple of movies.
That I think, yeah.
One with Anna Kendrick, where it was more of a comedic action, like
Was the
thriller.
where he played Chuck Barris.
no. This was where he was a person that was like a professional assassin, and he meets Anna Kendrick at happenstance, and he has like a clown nose, and he's being hunted by people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a real.
here's one for Daredevil.
Go ahead.
Al Pacino. Because he could be like, hoo-yah.
Hooah! I got you.
No.
I'm just kidding. So out of this movie, is there any part of this movie that has, for a home theater enthusiast out there, is there any part of this movie that would you think would be good for a home theater demo?
Definitely the scene after the father gets killed, or during that time when when Nicholas Nachios gets killed, and Elektra is taking revenge, and you see you actually see Bullseye for the first time
You
with the
think that
explosion. Yeah, with the explosion, and he misses, and yeah, that whole scene where he's introduced.
right?
Yeah,
I don't know. I just as I saw this movie, I thought about that and I was like, there's nothing in this movie that I would like. This is not a movie that I would pop in for me to show off my surround sound system. You understand? It's just like I didn't there's nothing in there that I saw that it was
Bar
just
fight, maybe.
The bar fight, I was gonna say,
Because
or
there's
even
parts of the bar
yeah.
fight where the sound is isolated because they're trying to give you the idea
oh,
of
true.
what
Yeah,
Daredevil hears.
Yeah.
So there's parts in there where
it's
he hears the
deafening
breathing and things
in
like
that
that. If you had a
sense.
good
Yeah.
surround sound system,
all right. I
you could
mean,
have the sounds coming from different
I'll
areas.
have to watch that again and then just kind of see that yeah, because I didn't like there was just nothing in this movie that was like, oh, okay. I mean, there's some scenes, but nothing that stood out where I go, holy crap, that was like some really good sound design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's
Yeah.
nothing really good.
Yeah.
Maybe like
Well,
that
Even the
last
bar
fight
fight,
scene
just
where he fights Kingpin and then like he breaks the hose and you can hear all the water and then he like
Trickling
slides
down.
underneath and then like he
Yeah.
I thought that part was pretty cool where he went underneath and like knocked his knees in the opposite direction and then like I don't know, just like those small little. I think it just with the bigger
Right.
surround sound system, you probably
Yeah.
feel those scenes a little bit more.
If this movie was to be what I would say, what is it? Re-recorded in Dolby Atmos, where Dolby Atmos you have a height channel, then yes, I think there would be
With the water. Yeah.
right. I think there would be several scenes, like let's say the scene where like it starts
In
to
the
rain.
cemetery.
Yes, in the cemetery, or like when the rain, when they're when him and Elektra are alone and then the rain falls on her and he sees her, that rain part, if it was in a separate height channel, would be really cool to actually hear that coming from above.
Sure.
And then when he hears those people, oh, that guy that's actually in trouble, and he hears that, if it can actually really, if they could separate that channel enough to be on one side of your home theater where you're like, holy shit, that is like happening somewhere really far. Like if it actually like, like spatial audio where you could like hear it, where you're like, oh shit, that sounds like it's like 40 feet away.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a really cool scene. By the way, did you notice that he said like he when he heard that, he told her, I have to go. Did he go back home, put on the costume, and then come over to a mugging that was that was supposed to be like a 2-minute mugging? I mean,
No, he pulled a Peter Parker or a Spider-Man thing where he put a backpack and stuck it to the side of the wall just in case.
Did he have like a ring like Flash where like the costume pops out of the ring or something? Because I was like, wait a minute, didn't you have to go back home, put all that shit on? And then, I mean, by the time you come back, the mugging is done, or was this like a third mugging for the guy?
Well, that's a lot of leather to put on at that point, too.
Oh my God, man! Especially after you're wet, it becomes harder to put on or harder to take. I don't know.
Yeah, you got baby powder.
All right, guys. So that is actually our show for today. So this is our review for our fan casting for Daredevil 2003 with Ben Affleck. It's not a movie that I think of course wasn't received very well, and it was actually one of Ben Affleck's first flops. And after that, of course, he had Jiggly and all these things, so it was kind of like.
But he was the bomb in the Phantoms, yo.
What's the bomb?
But that being said, it's a movie that I enjoyed watching it again, so I could know why I don't want to watch it again.
There you go.
And then probably like in another 10 years, I might go, you know what? Let me pop this in because I don't remember this movie, and then I go, oh, that's why. So
you still own it, dude.
I still own it. So, but it's
we actually probably all own this motherfucker.
Yeah, so
I own it twice.
I do.
Yeah, we all do. I own it twice. I have the regular and the director's cut, and it still didn't improve anything.
I just had the regular.
I just think that this is a movie that, of course, this was the start of what Marvel was trying to do. They just weren't there. Yeah, and of course, all these studios were doing their own thing because they weren't, there was no universe. But later we saw what Marvel, becomes, where now it's like, oh wow, now these characters can now be done the right way and given the justice it should be given, and recognize that, hey, these that people don't realize, people think comic books are just comic books, and they don't realize that sometimes there's some of the best fucking writing that you will ever read. Out there, man. I mean, there's some comic books that have actually won awards. I think Eisner Awards. No, not Eisner. What's the literature award out there that's really big? I forgot what it was. I know that Watchmen actually got that award, and they got taken back because it was just a comic book. I forgot what it was. But that being said, there is some great writing. There's some great stories out there, and I'm glad to see that now we're starting to tap into those things. That some of these studios are taking it a lot more serious. It's unfortunate that sometimes, how can I say, they go off on their own shit, as they always do, and then they ruin the IP. So I'm hoping they could steer back and take us, where we want to see these things. So that's my thought on that. And so I want to thank everybody for sticking by and listening to us ramble, and especially about our Wolverine segment. And if you guys have any thought on that, you can always reach us, or any thought on this. And what's your fan cast? How would you change the story? What do you think would be a better movie besides the Netflix? All right, so if somebody has an idea out there, let us know. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be better than what we came up with. Or
if you want, you can tell us basically where on the doll Daredevil touched you.
Or you can just email us at fantasypicksmovieedition@gmail.com.
Yes, you could do that, or you could also reach us on Facebook. We are on Facebook and we are on Instagram, so definitely check us out there. We try to update Facebook and Instagram as much as possible. And we have a face group that you can actually get on there and actually talk to us if you guys want to. All right. So thank you guys for coming on. Definitely enjoy that. Quick plug-in for you guys. Adam, where can they see you, hear you, or do whatever?
Yeah, you can follow me Instagram ag.cinema or Gilded Harbor. And you can go to gildedharbor.com. That's where I do updates for all my film projects.
Okay. And you, Mark?
You can find me on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast on the Pyrocore Entertainment Network. All you have to do is go to pyrocoreentertainment.com. And you could also hear me on Panels to Pixels Podcast.
Cool. And you, Frank?
Well, I show up here at Fantasy Picks Movie Edition. Sometimes I'm in Adrenaline Cinemas, and then sometimes I'm in Panels to Pixels. So wherever they ask me to be, that's where I show up.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on. Thank everybody out there for listening to us, and hopefully we will catch you the next time. You guys have a great day and be safe.